They kept telling me I wasn't welcome at any family event. So when I got married, I left them off the list. They freaked out, demanding to fix things. I made one call, and that shut everything down. Can you imagine being told over and over that you're simply not wanted at your own family's biggest moments? Well, I lived it. And when I finally got married and didn't invite a single one of them, they didn't just lose their minds. I made one call that silenced them forever. Growing up, I was the youngest of 4 kids, and I always believed families were supposed to stick together, have each other's backs. Turns out, my family had a completely different playbook for that. My name's Phyllis, and this is how I went from being the resident family scapegoat to the so-called villain who absolutely shattered their perfect little illusion. And honestly, I regret precisely nothing. It all really kicked off when I was about 18. My oldest brother, Marcus, was marrying Bethany, a woman my mom absolutely adored. This wedding was a whole production, held at some fancy country club, with a guest list that probably cost more than a semester of college. Everyone in our family was involved. Marcus was the golden child, so this was, according to my mother, the event of the century. My sister Jessica was a bridesmaid. My other brother Tyler was a groomsman. My parents were hosting the rehearsal dinner, practicing this elaborate toast for weeks. Me? I was told I could come to the ceremony, but the reception was a no-go. Space was limited, they said, and Bethany's family was quite large. I was just 18, fresh out of high school, about to start college. I remember crying in my room, confused, while my mom told me to stop being so dramatic. She actually said, "Some people just don't make the cut, and you need to learn life isn't fair." My dad, typical of him, said nothing. The ceremony came and went. I sat with my grandmother, who spent the whole time whispering about how beautiful Bethany looked. After it ended, my grandma drove me home while everyone else went to celebrate. I spent that evening alone, watching TV, eating leftover pizza. That was just the beginning. 2 years later, when I was 20, my parents threw this huge graduation party for Jessica. She'd finished college with honors, so they rented out the back room of a fancy Italian restaurant. The invite list included distant cousins I'd met twice, family friends from church, basically everyone my parents had ever known. I'd spent the day before helping, carrying boxes, hanging streamers. The day of the party, my mom pulled me aside. She said there'd been a miscommunication about the head count. They were over capacity. Someone had to stay home. And since I was just starting college and Jessica's grad school friends were coming, it made sense for me to sit it out. She handed me $40 and told me to order Chinese. I was devastated. My Aunt Karen actually confronted my mom about it later, asking why I wasn't there. My mother, without missing a beat, apparently said I had a school project due. The lie was so casual, so effortless. That same year, Tyler got engaged to Amanda. The engagement party was at Amanda's parents' house, beautiful backyard, string lights, pool. I wasn't invited. This time, my mom didn't even bother with an excuse. Intimate gathering for close friends and family only, she said. I actually pointed out, but I am family. She just gave me this look, the kind that could freeze water, and said, "You know what I mean, Phyllis." I didn't, not really, but I was definitely starting to figure it out. By my mid-20s, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Thanksgiving dinners where I'd show up and they'd already eaten because they thought I wasn't coming. Christmas mornings where everyone opened presents together, but mine were a separate pile for me to open alone later. Birthday parties for my nieces and nephews where my mother would call the day before, suggesting maybe I shouldn't come, just in case I felt uncomfortable. The excuses were endless and, frankly, pretty creative. Too many people, not enough space, wrong timing, awkward dynamics, budget constraints. Every single family gathering had a reason why I, specifically, couldn't attend. My therapist, Dr. Sharon Matthews, eventually explained it to me. Scapegoating, she called it. One family member gets designated as the outsider, the problem, the one who just doesn't quite fit. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because the exclusion itself creates distance and resentment, which then gets used as justification for even more exclusion. But back then, I just thought something was fundamentally wrong with me. I tried everything. I lost weight, thinking maybe they were embarrassed by how I looked. I changed my college major from art to business, hoping they'd take me more seriously. I volunteered to help with every single event, thinking if I was useful enough, they'd want me around. Nothing worked. The final straw? Marcus and Bethany's 10th anniversary party. It was this elaborate vow renewal, followed by a reception at the same country club where they first got married. I drove 3 hours from where I was living, brought an expensive gift, and showed up in my absolute nicest dress. My mother met me at the door. Her face went white. "Phyllis," she hissed, "what are you doing here?" I showed her the text Jessica had sent me with all the details. My mother's face cycled through about 5 different emotions before settling on pure annoyance. "Jessica wasn't supposed to tell you about this," she said. "This is a private family event." Something inside me just snapped. "I am family," I yelled. She leaned in, her voice low and cold. "You know, these events get complicated when you're here. People have to watch what they say, and it just creates tension." Marcus specifically said he wanted this to be drama-free. I had driven 3 hours. I had bought a gift. I was wearing heels that were killing my feet. And I was being turned away at the door like some unwanted solicitor. I left the gift on a table in the entryway and walked back to my car. I didn't cry. I was done crying about these people. That was 3 years ago. I was 31. Shortly after that disaster, I met Ryan. He was a software engineer with kind eyes and this dorky sense of humor that made me laugh until my stomach hurt. Our first date turned into a 6-hour conversation over coffee that had long since gone cold. 3 months in, I knew he was different. 6 months in, I'd introduced him to my friends, but kept my family at arm's length. A year in, he proposed on a hiking trail at sunset. I said yes without hesitation. We started planning the wedding right away. Small ceremony, maybe 70 people, at this gorgeous venue in the mountains. Ryan's family was involved from day one. His mom helped me pick out flowers. His sister was my maid of honor. His dad joked about finally getting a daughter. The question of my own family came up during a planning session. Ryan's mother, Linda, asked if my parents had any dietary restrictions. "They're not coming," I said simply. The room went quiet. Ryan squeezed my hand under the table. He knew bits and pieces of my history, but I'd never fully laid it all out. Linda looked genuinely confused. "Did something happen?" she asked. "They've made it very clear over the years that I'm not welcome at family events," I told her. "I'm just returning the favor." Ryan's father, Tom, set down his pen. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" So, I told them everything. Every excluded birthday, every missed holiday, every time I'd been turned away or uninvited. Ryan had heard some of it, but hearing the full timeline, laid out chronologically, seemed to affect him deeply. His jaw kept clenching. Linda actually teared up. "Those people don't deserve you at their events, let alone at yours." We finalized the guest list without a single member of my biological family on it. My parents, my siblings, their spouses, their kids, none of them received invitations. It felt terrifying and liberating all at once. The invitations went out 6 weeks before the wedding. Cream-colored cards with forest green calligraphy. Ryan's family made up about 50 of the 70 guests. The rest were my college friends, my coworkers, and a few people from my book club. For 3 weeks, I heard nothing. I'd half expected angry phone calls or guilt-trip texts, but there was only silence. I almost convinced myself they didn't care. Then, Jessica called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making dinner. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Phyllis, we need to talk about this wedding situation." I stirred the pasta sauce and waited. "Mom just found out you're getting married and none of us are invited." She's absolutely beside herself. I asked how she found out. "Amanda saw something on Facebook from one of your friends." When Amanda asked Mom about it, she had no idea. I couldn't help but laugh. "So, let me get this straight. After years of excluding me from every family event, Mom is upset that she's not invited to mine." Jessica retorted, "That's different, Phyllis. We're your family. Are you?" I shot back. "Because family usually shows up for each other. Family includes each other. Family doesn't turn people away at the door. Jessica sighed dramatically. You're being incredibly selfish. Mom is devastated. Marcus is furious. Tyler thinks you're being vindictive. Good, I said. What? She asked. I said good. I'm glad they're upset. Maybe now they'll have some idea how I felt for the past 16 years. We're trying to fix things here, and you're just throwing it back in our faces, she shrieked. Nobody's trying to fix anything, Jessica. You're trying to control the narrative so you can all attend a party. There's a difference. She hung up on me. Ryan, who'd been listening from the doorway, came over and wrapped his arms around me. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said, actually, I'm great. The calls started coming daily after that. Marcus called to tell me I was being immature and that family forgives family. I reminded him about his anniversary party and hung up. Tyler sent a long text about how our parents were getting older and I'd regret creating this divide. I didn't respond. My mother left a voicemail, crying about how she'd always tried her best and didn't understand where this hostility was coming from. That voicemail almost broke me. Almost. 2 weeks before the wedding, my father called. This was huge. My dad never called me. He barely spoke to me even when we were in the same room. Phyllis, he said, your mother wants to talk about coming to the wedding. The answer is no. She's willing to apologize for any hurt feelings. Hurt feelings? Dad, she turned me away at the door of Marcus's anniversary party. That wasn't hurt feelings. That was active rejection. She says that was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that's been happening consistently for 16 years. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want from us, Phyllis? The question caught me off guard. I don't want anything from you anymore. I wanted to be included. I wanted to be part of the family, but I've accepted that's never going to happen. So, you're just going to cut us all off? I'm doing exactly what you've all been doing to me, I told him. I'm just being more honest about it. He hung up without saying goodbye. The week of the wedding, things escalated. My mother showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home and answered the door in sweatpants and a coffee-stained t-shirt. Phyllis, we need to fix this. There's nothing to fix, Mom. I'm your mother, she said, her voice rising. I deserve to be at your wedding. The audacity of that statement almost made me laugh. You've spent years telling me I don't deserve to be at family events. Why is this different? Because this is your wedding. It's important. And Marcus's wedding wasn't important? Jessica's graduation party wasn't important? Every Christmas and Thanksgiving I've missed wasn't important. She looked genuinely baffled, as if she couldn't comprehend why I was being so difficult. Those were complicated situations, she insisted. No, Mom. They were choices. You chose to exclude me repeatedly, deliberately, and now I'm making the same choice. Then she pulled out her final card. Your father and I will give you $10,000 toward the wedding if you add us to the guest list. I actually had to sit down after that one. You're trying to buy your way into my wedding? We're trying to support you, she cried. Where was this support when I was crying in my room at 12 years old because I wasn't allowed at Marcus's reception? Where was it when I ate Chinese food alone while everyone celebrated Jessica? Where was it every single time I was told I wasn't welcome? My mother's face hardened. You were always so sensitive. Everything was a drama with you. Get out of my apartment, I said, my voice shaking. Phyllis, get out or I'm calling the police. She left, and I locked the door behind her with trembling hands. Ryan came home an hour later to find me rage cleaning the kitchen. He ordered pizza, put on my favorite movie, and didn't make me talk about it until I was ready. The Friday before the wedding, Marcus showed up at my workplace. I worked at a marketing firm downtown, and he somehow charmed his way past reception. My coworker, Stephanie, came to my cubicle looking apologetic. There's a man here who says he's your brother. I closed my laptop. Tell security to escort him out. Phyllis, he seems pretty upset. I don't care. I don't want to talk to him. Marcus appeared behind Stephanie, looking frantic. 5 minutes? Just give me 5 minutes. My boss, Richard, had come out of his office at the commotion. Is there a problem here? No problem, I said calmly. This person is leaving. Marcus ignored everyone else and focused on me. Mom is in the hospital. My stomach dropped. What? She had a panic attack so severe they admitted her for observation. The stress of all this has been destroying her, Phyllis. Richard looked at me with concern. Do you need to take the rest of the day? I looked at Marcus. Really looked at him. He was playing the guilt card, using our mother's health as a weapon. It was manipulative, transparent, and I was so tired of falling for it. Is she dying? Marcus looked shocked. What? No, Is she in immediate danger? The doctor said she's stable, but... Then she'll be fine. Richard, I don't need any time off. Marcus, you need to leave before I have security remove you. You're really going to do this? You're going to let our mother suffer because of some grudge. I'm going to protect my peace because your family has spent years making me feel worthless. There's a difference. Security did end up escorting Marcus out. He yelled something about me being heartless as they walked him to the elevator. Half my office had witnessed the entire thing. I sat back down at my desk, opened my laptop, and got back to work. My hands were trembling, but I didn't cry. Stephanie brought me coffee an hour later. You okay? Getting there. The wedding was on Saturday. The morning started with mimosas and laughter at the hotel where my bridesmaids and I were getting ready. Ryan's sister Emily did my makeup while my best friend Morgan from college curled my hair. The dress fit perfectly, a simple A-line gown with lace sleeves that made me feel beautiful. My phone rang around noon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Phyllis, this is Bethany, Marcus's wife. I hadn't heard from her directly in years. What do you want, Bethany? I'm calling to beg you to reconsider. Your family is falling apart over this. My family fell apart a long time ago. They're just noticing now because they're the ones being excluded for once. Marcus is beside himself. Your mother is on medication for anxiety. Tyler and Amanda are talking about not coming to Christmas this year because the whole family dynamic is destroyed. That sounds like a lot of problems that have nothing to do with me. How can you be so cold? She wailed. Years of practice. I hung up and turned off my phone. Emily squeezed my shoulder. You've got this. The venue was perfect. String lights hung between trees. Flowers decorated every surface. The mountain view behind the altar was breathtaking. 70 people who actually loved me filled the seats. Ryan's parents sat in the front row, looking so proud. My book club friends were dabbing their eyes before the ceremony even started. I walked down the aisle alone. No father to give me away because giving someone away implies ownership, and I'd never really belonged to my family anyway. Ryan was crying before I made it halfway down the aisle. His vows mentioned building a new definition of family together, one based on choice rather than obligation. Mine mentioned finding home and people who showed up. The reception was perfect. Dinner was delicious. The speeches were heartfelt. And the dancing lasted until the venue staff had to politely kick us out. Ryan's grandmother, 83 and hilarious, got tipsy on champagne and told inappropriate stories about Ryan as a child. Morgan's toast mentioned how she'd watched me grow from a sad college freshman into someone who knew her worth. At no point did I wish my biological family was there. At no point did I feel like something was missing. The trouble started on our honeymoon. Ryan and I had gone to Costa Rica for 2 weeks, rainforests, beaches, and absolutely no contact with the outside world. We both turned off our phones and left them in the hotel safe. When we got back and I finally powered on my phone, I had 389 messages waiting. The first few were from Jessica, progressively angrier, then Tyler, then Marcus, then numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails from my mother that started pleading and ended threatening. Text messages from extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years, all saying variations of, "How could you?" The most recent message was from my Aunt Karen, my mother's sister. "Call me immediately. This has gone too far." I called Karen while Ryan unpacked. She answered on the first ring. "Phyllis, thank God. We need to talk about your mother." "What about her?" "She's threatening to sue you." I actually laughed. "Sue me for what?" "Emotional distress. She's talked to a lawyer about pursuing legal action for the trauma you've caused by excluding the family from your wedding." That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. "She's serious, Phyllis. She's telling everyone that you've destroyed the family and that she's going to make you pay for it legally if you don't agree to some kind of reconciliation. Something in me shifted. I'd been playing defense this entire time, setting boundaries and protecting myself. But they kept pushing, kept demanding, kept trying to force their way into a life they'd spent years pushing me out of. It was time to play offense. Tell Mom that if she wants to pursue legal action, she's welcome to try. But I need you to do something for me first. What? I need you to think back over the past 16 years. Think about every event I was excluded from. Every time Mom made excuses for why I couldn't attend. Every time Dad stayed silent while I was pushed out. You've been there for some of it. You questioned it at Jessica's graduation party. Karen was quiet. If Mom wants to go legal, I'll be happy to provide documentation. I've kept every text message, every email, every voicemail. I have witnesses who can testify to the pattern of exclusion. I have a therapist who can speak to the psychological impact. And I have you, Aunt Karen, who confronted Mom directly about excluding me. Phyllis, I don't want to be dragged into. You're already in it. Everyone is. Because Mom made the choice to weaponize family events, and now she's facing consequences. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Mom that if she pursues any legal action, I will countersue for emotional distress and harassment, and I will win because I actually have evidence. You're bluffing, Karen said. Try me. I hung up and immediately called Dr. Matthews. She was on vacation but answered when she saw my name. Phyllis, is everything okay? I need documentation of our sessions discussing family exclusion. How detailed can you get without violating confidentiality? If you sign a release, I can provide a professional summary of the therapeutic issues we've addressed, including family scapegoating patterns and their psychological impact. Why? I explained the situation. Dr. Matthews was quiet for a long moment. I'll have something prepared by Monday. And Phyllis, what you're doing, setting these boundaries, that's healthy. Don't let them convince you otherwise. Next, I called a lawyer. Brian Foster came, recommended by a friend who'd gone through a messy family situation. I explained everything over the phone, and he asked me to come in Monday morning. Bring any documentation you have. Text messages, emails, voicemails, anything that shows the pattern of exclusion. I spent Sunday organizing 16 years of evidence. Screenshots of messages where I was uninvited to events. Emails making excuses. Voicemails from my mother's recent campaign. I created a timeline document with dates, events, and specific examples of exclusion. It was damning. Laid out in black and white, the pattern was undeniable. Monday morning, I sat in Brian's office and watched him review everything. His expression grew increasingly grim. This is textbook harassment and emotional abuse, he said. If your mother actually tries to sue you, her case will be dismissed immediately. But more importantly, you have grounds for restraining orders based on the harassment you've documented over the past month. Restraining orders? They've shown up at your home and workplace uninvited. They've contacted you hundreds of times despite your clear desire for no contact. They've made threats of legal action. A judge would absolutely grant temporary restraining orders, possibly permanent ones, depending on how they respond. I thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. Do it. Brian filed the paperwork that afternoon. Temporary restraining orders for my mother, father, Marcus, Jessica, and Tyler. All 5 of them had participated in the harassment campaign, and all 5 had documented evidence against them. The orders were served Wednesday morning. I was at work when Brian called to confirm. It's done. They've all been served. You should expect some reaction. The reaction came within an hour. Aunt Karen called from a restricted number. Phyllis, what have you done? Protected myself. Your mother is hysterical. She can't come within 50 feet of you. This is insane. What's insane is that it took a court order for them to respect my boundaries. The whole family is taking sides. Everyone thinks you've gone too far. Good, I said. They can all stay far away from me, too. My phone started ringing constantly. Blocked numbers, unknown callers, text messages from cousins I hadn't spoken to since childhood. Everyone had an opinion about how I was tearing the family apart. I turned off my phone and went back to work. That evening, Ryan and I sat on our apartment balcony with wine and Chinese takeout. He'd been my rock through all of this, never once suggesting I should just give in or make peace. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Lighter," I said. "Like I've been carrying this weight for so long that I forgot what it felt like to put it down." "Any regrets?" I thought about it honestly. No. I gave them years to treat me like family. They chose not to. I'm just enforcing the boundary they created. My phone was still off, but Ryan's rang around 8. He checked the caller ID and frowned. "It's my mom." "That's weird. She usually texts." He answered on speaker. "Hey, Mom. What's up?" "Ryan?" "I just got a very strange phone call from Phyllis's mother." My stomach dropped. Of course, they'd found a way around the restraining order. "What did she say?" I asked, grabbing the phone. "She said Phyllis has been struggling with mental health issues and has had a breakdown. She claimed Phyllis has cut off the entire family based on delusions and that she's worried about Phyllis's well-being. She asked if we'd noticed any concerning behavior." Ryan's jaw clenched. "She's trying to manipulate you." "I figured that out pretty quickly," Linda said. "I told her that you seem perfectly healthy and happy, and that maybe she should respect the legal boundaries that have been put in place." Then I hung up. I could have cried. "Thank you for calling us." "Of course, honey. And from what Ryan's told me, you're doing exactly the right thing. Don't let her get in your head." After we hung up, Ryan pulled up the restraining order paperwork. "Can she contact my family?" "The order says she can't contact me directly or through third parties." "Let me text Brian." Brian responded within minutes. The call to Linda violated the restraining order. "He'll file documentation with the court in the morning. This could result in her being held in contempt." His message read, "Do you want to pursue it?" I stared at my phone for a long time. This was the nuclear option. Holding my mother in contempt of court would mean fines, possibly even jail time, depending on the judge. "Do it," I typed back. Ryan squeezed my hand. "You're sure?" "She tried to convince your mother I was mentally unstable. She's attempting to isolate me by turning people against me. This isn't about attending a wedding anymore. This is about control." The court hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Brian advised me to be prepared for my family to show up despite the restraining orders. "They'll try to speak during the hearing. The judge will shut it down, but they'll try." The courtroom was exactly like TV shows depicted, wood paneling, uncomfortable benches, that distinct smell of old paper and floor polish. I sat next to Brian, wearing my most professional outfit. Ryan sat in the gallery behind us for moral support. My mother arrived with her own lawyer, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked annoyed to be there. She couldn't look at me directly because of where the bailiff made her sit. Marcus and Jessica showed up too, sitting in the back. My father and Tyler were notably absent. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Henderson, reviewed the case files with an expression that gave nothing away. "Miss Phyllis Thompson, you filed for permanent restraining orders against Margaret Thompson, David Thompson, Marcus Thompson, Jessica Thompson-Wells, and Tyler Thompson based on harassment and violation of temporary orders. Mrs. Thompson, your attorney may present your response." Her lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this is clearly a family dispute that's been blown out of proportion. Mrs. Thompson and the other family members are concerned about their daughter and sister's well-being and have attempted to reach out in care and love. The contact with the mother-in-law was simply one concerned parent reaching out to another." Judge Henderson looked unimpressed. "The temporary restraining order specifically prohibited contact through third parties. That's not ambiguous." "Your Honor, if I may, my mother tried to speak." "You may not," the judge interrupted. "Your attorney speaks for you." Brian stood. "Your Honor, we have documented evidence of 16 years of emotional abuse and exclusion, followed by a campaign of harassment when my client set boundaries. The contact with Mrs. Linda Foster was not an isolated incident of concern, but rather an attempt to manipulate my client's support system. We have hundreds of documented attempts at contact from multiple family members despite clear requests to cease." He presented the timeline I created, the text messages, the voicemails, everything. Judge Henderson reviewed it all in silence. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear Marcus shifting uncomfortably in his seat behind us. Finally, she looked up. "Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Marcus Thompson, Ms. Thompson Wells, and Mr. Tyler Thompson, though I see the latter two are not present. I'm going to be very direct with you. This documentation shows a clear pattern of exclusion followed by harassment. Your daughter and sister has a legal right to determine who is and is not in her life. The attempt to contact her mother-in-law with misleading information about mental health is particularly concerning, as it appears designed to isolate and discredit her. My mother's lawyer tried to interrupt. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Judge Henderson cut him off. I'm granting the permanent restraining orders for all 5 respondents. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Marcus Thompson, Ms. Thompson Wells, and Mr. Tyler Thompson. You are all to have no direct or indirect contact with Phyllis Thompson. That includes through family members, through friends, through social media, or through any other means. If any of you violate these orders, you will be arrested. Do you understand? My mother was crying. She's my daughter. She's an adult woman who has clearly communicated her boundaries. This court recognizes those boundaries. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I could finally breathe. Marcus tried to approach us in the hallway, but Ryan stepped between us. Don't, Phyllis. Please. This is destroying our mother. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He was 38 years old, successful, married with 3 kids I barely knew. He never once stood up for me, never questioned why I was excluded, never invited me to anything personally. Your mother destroyed herself by treating her child like garbage for 16 years, I told him. I'm just the mirror showing her the consequences. We walked away. Behind us, I heard Jessica crying and my mother saying something about her baby, her youngest. I didn't turn around. The story made its way through the extended family quickly. Aunt Karen called Ryan's phone one last time to tell me that I had torn the family apart and that everyone was choosing sides. Good, I told her. The trash is taking itself out. She hasn't called since. What I didn't expect was how the fallout would ripple through other areas. About 2 weeks after the court hearing, I ran into Bethany at the grocery store. She was in the produce section, and I briefly considered turning my cart around and leaving, but something stopped me. I was done running. She saw me before I could decide. Her face went through several emotions: surprise, discomfort, something that might have been guilt. Phyllis, she said. Bethany. We stood there awkwardly, both holding bundles of organic kale like weapons. She spoke first. Marcus has been a mess since the hearing. He barely sleeps. That's unfortunate, I said. And I meant it. Not the sarcastic kind of unfortunate, but genuinely sad that it had come to this. He wants me to tell you that he's been thinking about everything. About when you were younger. I waited. She continued. He remembers more than he let on. The wedding reception you missed when you were 18. Other things. He said he always thought your mom was being ridiculous, but he never said anything because it was easier not to make waves. So, he's sorry now that there are consequences. Bethany flinched. He's sorry because he's realizing what actually happened. My therapist has been helping me see it, too. We've been going to couples counseling since the restraining order. This surprised me. Why couples counseling? Because I enabled it, too. I never questioned why you weren't at family events. I never pushed back when your mom made those excuses. I just accepted it because it was convenient. She shifted her kale to her other hand. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I'm just telling you that some of us are finally seeing the truth. What about my mother? Is she seeing anything? Bethany's laugh was bitter. Your mother has convinced herself she's the victim. She's telling anyone who will listen that you had some kind of psychological break and turned against your loving family. She started going to a different church because people at the old one were asking too many questions. We stood there for another moment. Then Bethany did something unexpected. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. These are photos from Marcus's wedding, the reception you weren't invited to. I found them while cleaning out old boxes. She handed them to me. I thought you might want them. Not for nostalgia, but as proof in case you ever need more evidence of what they did. I took the envelope, unsure what to say. Inside were dozens of photos. My entire family celebrating while I'd been home alone eating leftover pizza. There was even a picture of the seating chart. My name wasn't on it. Thank you, I managed. I'm not asking for anything in return. I just needed to do something that wasn't completely terrible. She paused. For what it's worth, your wedding looked beautiful. I saw the photos your friends posted. You looked happy. I was, I said. I am. She nodded and walked away, leaving me standing there with proof of my 18-year-old heartbreak captured in glossy prints. That night, I showed Ryan the photos. He looked through them silently, his expression growing darker with each image. Jesus, Phyllis, he said, you were just a kid. I know. How did they justify this to themselves? I don't think they did, I said. I think they just didn't think about it at all. The photos went into the drawer with my father's letter. Evidence of a past I was still processing, even as I moved forward. The next surprise came from Tyler. He couldn't call or text. The restraining order prevented that. Instead, he sent a package through his lawyer to my workplace, which was legally permissible as a one-time communication through proper legal channels. Inside was a journal, Tyler's journal, apparently from when he was in college. A sticky note on the front read, page 47. I thought you should know. This is my only communication. I won't contact you again. I opened to page 47. The entry was dated December 2013, right after Christmas when I was 21. It read, Phyllis asked why she couldn't come to Christmas Eve dinner at Grandma's. Mom said it was because Grandma's house was too small and someone had to stay home. But Grandma's house isn't small. We had 12 people there and could have fit more. I asked Mom why Phyllis specifically had to be the one to stay home. She got mad and told me to stop questioning her. She said Phyllis was going through a difficult phase and it was better for everyone if she wasn't around certain family members. I don't understand what that means. Phyllis isn't difficult. She's quiet and she draws a lot. What's difficult about that? I think Mom just doesn't like her as much as she likes the rest of us. I don't know why. It makes me feel guilty every time we go somewhere without her. But I don't say anything because I don't want Mom to be mad at me too. I read the entry 5 times. Tyler had known. He'd questioned it, at least internally, but he'd chosen silence over standing up for me. There were other entries marked with sticky notes throughout the journal. Each one documented another instance of my exclusion. Another moment where Tyler noticed, but said nothing. The final marked entry was from 2016. I've stopped writing about Phyllis being left out. It happens so often now that it would take up the whole journal. I feel like a coward for not saying anything, but Marcus doesn't say anything either. And Jessica actively agrees with Mom, so what difference would it make? Sometimes I think about asking Phyllis if she's okay, but I don't know what I'd say. Sorry, Mom treats you like garbage and the rest of us just watch. That seems worse than saying nothing at all. The package also included a letter, sent through his attorney. Phyllis, I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm sending this through legal channels as a one-time communication, and I won't violate the restraining order by contacting you again. I think you deserve to know that at least one of us noticed what was happening. I noticed, and I did nothing, which maybe makes me worse than Mom and Jessica, who seemed genuinely oblivious to their own cruelty. I chose my comfort over your well-being repeatedly for years. The restraining order, the court hearing, all of it. It made me pull out these old journals and confront what I'd chosen to forget. You deserve better from all of us, but especially from me. I was old enough to know better and too cowardly to do better. I hope you're happy now. I mean that genuinely. Tyler. Ryan found me crying on the couch when he got home from work, the journal open on my lap. What happened? I showed him. He read several entries, then set the journal down carefully. How do you feel? I don't know, I said. Validated, angry, sad, all of it. That's fair. He knew Ryan. For years he knew it was wrong and he just let it happen. Yeah, part of me wants to respond and tell him it's okay, that I understand he was young and scared, but it's not okay, is it? No, Ryan said gently. It's not. And you don't owe him absolution just because he finally feels guilty. The journal joined the photos in the drawer. Evidence of a family that failed me in real time, with witnesses who chose silence. It's been 4 months since the wedding now. Ryan and I have settled into married life beautifully. We host dinners with his family every other week. My book club friends throw me surprise brunches. My coworkers have become genuine friends, people who show up and support each other. I've built the family I always wanted, just not with the people I share DNA with. Last week, my lawyer called me. Tyler's attorney had contacted him with a request. My father wanted to send me a letter, but given the restraining order, he needed my explicit written permission to do so without violating the court order. I thought about it for 2 days. Finally, I told Brian to allow it. One letter, that was it. It arrived a week later, written in my father's careful handwriting. Phyllis, I'm sorry. I should have said something years ago. I should have protected you. I didn't understand what your mother was doing until it was too late. And by then, I didn't know how to fix it. I'm not asking for forgiveness or contact. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, and I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in the drawer with Tyler's journal and the photos from Marcus's wedding and went back to making dinner with my husband. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe I won't. The point is, it's my choice now. I've stopped checking social media for updates about my family. I've blocked numbers and filtered emails. I've created a life where their presence isn't a constant wound. My therapist says I'm thriving. Ryan's mom says I'm glowing. My friends say I seem happier than they've ever seen me. I am. The moral of this story isn't that cutting off family is always the answer. It's that you teach people how to treat you. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who refuse to learn. I spent years believing I was the problem. That if I could just be better or different or more useful, they'd want me around. The truth is, there was never anything wrong with me. The problem was that I kept trying to force people to love me who had already decided I wasn't worth the effort. So, I found people who thought I was worth it. I married a man who thinks I hung the moon. I have friends who show up without being asked. I have in-laws who consider me a daughter. And somewhere across town, my biological family is probably still talking about how I ruined everything by setting boundaries. Let them talk. I'm too busy being happy to care. The one call I made to that lawyer didn't just end the harassment. It ended the cycle. It ended the years of wondering what I did wrong and how I could fix it. It ended the hope that maybe someday they'd choose me. And in ending all of that, it gave me the space to build something better. I don't regret the wedding they weren't invited to. I don't regret the restraining order. I don't regret any of it because for the first time in my entire life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, surrounded by people who actually want me there. And that's worth more than any family reunion could ever be, and that's worth more than any family reunion could ever be. You know, it's funny. For years, I believed that happiness, true happiness, was something you had to earn from others. Like it was a finite resource they held, and they could choose to grant you a small portion if you behaved, if you were good enough. But after that courtroom, after sending those letters, after finally shutting the door on the constant battle, I realized something profound. Happiness wasn't a gift they could withhold. It was a seed I could plant myself, in my own garden, and nurture with my own 2 hands. The immediate aftermath was peaceful. Eerily so at first. The silence on my phone, once a source of anxiety, became a comfort. The lack of notifications, the absence of accusatory voicemails, it all felt like shedding a heavy cloak I hadn't even realized I was wearing. Ryan was incredible through it all. He never once questioned my decisions, never wavered in his support. He just saw me, truly saw me, and loved me for it. His unwavering presence, his quiet strength, was the anchor I needed in those initial weeks as the storm finally, truly, passed. But even with the peace, healing isn't linear, right? It's not like you just flip a switch and all the years of pain vanish. There were still moments. Moments when a random song on the radio would trigger a memory, or a comment from a well-meaning stranger would make me flinch. I remember one afternoon, just a few weeks after the court hearing, Ryan and I were walking through a park. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, was laughing as her dad chased her, pretending to be a monster. And for a split second, I felt this raw, aching emptiness. This deep sense of loss for the childhood I never had, for the simple, unburdened joy of familial connection that felt so natural to others. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, a yearning for something I hadn't truly lost, because I'd never actually had it. I stopped walking, tears pricking at my eyes. Ryan, always so attuned to me, noticed immediately. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just pulled me into a hug, held me tight, and let me lean into him until the moment passed. Later, I brought it up in therapy with Dr. Matthews. She helped me understand that grief wasn't just for the dead. You can grieve the loss of a relationship that was never healthy, the loss of a potential future, the loss of the family you always wished you had. She called it disenfranchised grief that isn't openly acknowledged or socially supported. It made so much sense. It wasn't about missing them, not anymore. It was about grieving the dream of what a family could have been. And acknowledging that grief, allowing myself to feel it without guilt, was another crucial step in my healing. My new life, the one I'd built for myself, started to flourish in unexpected ways. Ryan's family, Linda and Tom, became the parents I never had. They didn't just welcome me, they cherished me. Linda would call just to chat, to see how my day was, to tell me about a new recipe she tried. Tom, who was a quiet man, started sharing his woodworking hobby with Ryan and me, patiently teaching us how to sand and stain. They made me feel seen, valued, and unconditionally loved. It was a stark contrast to the transactional affection I'd always received. Their love wasn't contingent on my usefulness or my silence, it was just there. My friends, Morgan from college and Stephanie from work, became pillars of my support system. Morgan, who had seen me through countless heartbreaks, celebrated every small victory with me. We'd have weekly video calls, dissecting life, laughing until our stomachs hurt. Stephanie, after the courthouse drama at work, became more than just a colleague. She'd bring me coffee, ask how I was really doing, and sometimes she'd just sit with me during lunch, sharing stories about her own complicated family dynamics. It made me realize that chosen family wasn't just a nice idea, it was a lifeline. At work, my boss Richard, surprisingly, became a quiet advocate. He'd witnessed Marcus's outburst, and I think it opened his eyes. He started giving me more responsibility, trusting my judgment, and often, after a big project, he'd pull me aside and just say, "Good work, Phyllis. You handled that well." It was simple, but after years of being told I was difficult or dramatic, that validation meant the world. My career started to really take off. I found myself pouring my energy into creative projects, using my artistic eye that my biological family had always dismissed. I discovered a passion for visual storytelling and marketing, designing campaigns that weren't just effective, but genuinely beautiful. It felt like I was finally using my true self, not the watered-down version I'd tried to be for others. One day, about 6 months after the court case, I received a package at my apartment. No return address, just my name handwritten in an unfamiliar script. My heart did a little flutter thump. Old habits die hard, you know? I opened it cautiously. Inside was a small, intricately carved wooden bird. It was beautiful, delicate, and signed simply Dad. No letter. No explanation. Just this small, tangible piece of apology, crafted by his own hands. I traced the smooth lines of the bird, a knot forming in my throat. It was the only thing I'd ever received from him that felt entirely his own, not something dictated or approved by my mother. It sat on my bookshelf now, a silent testament to a connection that was there, however muted, however late. The lingering question of my mother's contempt of court hearing hung over us for a while. Brian, my lawyer, called to say the date had been set. It was a few months down the line. He asked if I wanted to proceed. My initial reaction was an emphatic yes. She deserved to face consequences for trying to discredit me, for trying to manipulate Ryan's parents. But as the date drew closer, a strange sense of apathy began to settle in. Was it worth it? Would it actually give me anything more than I already had? I talked it over with Ryan one evening. "I don't know if I want to go through with it," I admitted, swirling my wine in its glass. "It feels like more drama. More energy expended on people who don't deserve it." Ryan listened patiently, as always. "It's your decision, Phil. You've already won. You've established your boundaries, you've protected yourself. Anything else is extra credit. If it doesn't serve your peace, then you don't have to do it." Dr. Matthews gave me similar advice. She said that sometimes, The most powerful act of self-care is choosing to disengage, to not give another drop of your precious energy to those who have repeatedly hurt you. So, I called Brian. Tell the court I'm withdrawing the motion for contempt. There was a pause. Are you sure, Phyllis? We had a very strong case. I'm sure, I said, and a profound sense of relief washed over me. It wasn't about letting her off the hook. It was about freeing myself from the need for external validation of her wrongdoing. Her actions had already proven themselves. I didn't need a judge to slap her with a fine for me to know I was right. My peace was more valuable than any legal victory. Word of my decision, I'm sure, eventually made its way back to my mother, probably through the family grapevine. I imagined her lawyer, annoyed, relaying the news. I wondered if she felt a sense of triumph, a belief that she'd won or that I'd finally caved. But it didn't matter. Her perception was irrelevant to my reality. Life continued to unfold beautifully. Ryan and I decided to buy a house, a small, cozy place with a big garden, just outside the city. It felt like such a tangible symbol of the home we were building together, a place of peace, safety, and unconditional love. Linda and Tom came over to help us plant our first rose bushes, laughing and sharing stories. My friends helped us paint the living room a cheerful sage green. Every nail hammered, every brushstroke, every shared meal felt like an act of creation, building something new and strong. About a year after the wedding, something truly unexpected happened. I received a handwritten letter from Bethany, Marcus's wife. It wasn't sent through a lawyer, but directly to my home address, implying she'd gone out of her way to get it, possibly risking contact from my mother. I opened it with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. It was a long letter, several pages, written in a clear, thoughtful hand. She started by apologizing again, more deeply this time, for her complicity, for her silence, for the convenient acceptance she'd had of my exclusion. She said that after the grocery store encounter, and after seeing the impact of the restraining orders on Marcus, she'd started to dig deeper, to truly examine her own role. She revealed that Marcus had started seeing a therapist individually, grappling with a profound sense of guilt and regret. He'd apparently spent years believing my mother's narrative, that I was sensitive or difficult, and that he was just going along to get along. But seeing the court documents, seeing the pain I was willing to endure to protect myself, had shattered his illusions. He was finally confronting the years of enabling behavior and the cowardice of his own inaction. But what truly surprised me was what came next. Bethany explained that the family dynamic had fundamentally fractured. My mother, still convinced she was the victim, had indeed alienated many people. The sides Karen mentioned had solidified. Jessica, ever loyal to Mom, had become even more entrenched in her viewpoint, often speaking disparagingly about me. But Tyler, surprisingly, had taken his own quiet stand. Bethany said he'd quietly pulled back from family events where he knew my mother would be present, citing prior engagements or just declining without explanation. He wasn't loud about it, but his absence spoke volumes. He and Amanda, she wrote, were having their own issues with my mother, who resented Amanda for not being more supportive of her during this trying time. The most poignant part of Bethany's letter was about the pictures she'd given me. She said that finding those photos, seeing me turn away from their family's drama with such quiet dignity, had been a turning point for her. It forced her to see her husband and herself through a new lens. She said she and Marcus were actively trying to raise their children differently, instilling in them empathy and the courage to speak up when something felt wrong. She ended by saying she understood I might never want contact again, and she respected that completely. But she wanted me to know that my actions had not just freed me, but had also, inadvertently, forced others to confront their own complicity. You broke the cycle, Phyllis, she wrote, and even if you never see us again, that's a gift you gave to us, too. I reread her letter countless times. It wasn't an invitation to reconcile. It wasn't a demand for forgiveness. It was an acknowledgement. A genuine, heartfelt acknowledgement of the truth. And in a way, it was the truest form of apology I could ever receive from that side of my family. It showed that my actions, painful as they were, had created ripples beyond my own immediate peace. It wasn't about winning or losing, it was about truth and accountability. I never wrote back to Bethany. Not because I didn't appreciate her honesty, but because my boundaries, once established, were firm. My life was full now, brimming with authentic connections and genuine love. There was no space, no need, to re-engage with the past, even with the promise of a healthier dynamic. I had built my own beautiful tapestry, and adding old, frayed threads felt unnecessary. Ryan and I eventually started our own family. When I held my first child, a tiny baby girl with Ryan's kind eyes, I felt a profound sense of purpose. I vowed, then and there, that she would never question her worth, would never feel excluded, would always know that she belonged, unconditionally. We built a home filled with laughter, open communication, and the unwavering belief that family is built on love, respect, and choice, not just shared DNA. Her grandparents, Linda and Tom, doted on her. My friends, Morgan and Stephanie, became her aunties. The village I had always yearned for was now real, tangible, and thriving. My father's small wooden bird still sits on my bookshelf. Tyler's journal, with its marked pages, rests in the drawer alongside Bethany's pictures. They are not reminders of pain anymore, but rather artifacts of a journey. A journey that taught me that sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones that lead you to the most profound peace. That sometimes, walking away isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. I'm in my late 30s now. My career is fulfilling, my marriage is strong, and my children are growing up in a home where they are fiercely loved and seen. The constant knot in my stomach that used to be a permanent fixture is gone. I look at my life now, the rich tapestry of relationships I've woven, and I feel an immense sense of gratitude. I built this. I chose this. And every single brick, every single thread, was placed with intention and love. I don't actively think about my biological family much anymore. They exist in a distant corner of my past, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. The anger has faded into a quiet understanding. The sadness has morphed into compassion for the people they chose to be. I no longer seek their approval or their acceptance. I am enough. And that truly is the most powerful resolution of all. My one call to that lawyer didn't just end the harassment, it cleared the path for me to live a life I never thought possible. A life where I am happy, whole, and surrounded by people who celebrate me, not tolerate me. A life where I am finally, truly free.